Welcome to the Small Business Doula. I'm Jessica, your host, and today we're going to be talking about government contracts for beginners, part 2. If you're new to the channel, welcome. This channel was created to empower entrepreneurs with knowledge and the understanding that you guys may need while you're navigating through the government contracting industry. So if you like what you see and hear, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and share this channel with anyone that you think may benefit from this information. If you're already a part of the community, welcome back. And let's get into our topic of the day. So today we're going to be discussing part 2 of a series that we've started called Government Contracts for Beginners. As you guys remember, last week we spoke about how to what was the importance of government contracts and how we played a role in government contracts as the contractor. So part 2, I wanted to do a little bit different, and I wanted to kind of share with you guys what my first experience was as a government contractor. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Before I got into government contracting, I was working in corporate America, and I was working as a recruiter, and I was supporting other government contractors and providing recruitment services to them as an employee. And then right before COVID hit, I was working with more of a public company providing corporate recruiting services. And of course, just like anyone else, I was furloughed and then eventually let go. And I used that opportunity to actually start my own company where I would offer services, essentially temporary recruitment services, basically. So I decided to take that and expand it into government contracting. But initially, I really didn't know where to start. Once I decided to start my own staffing company, I got connected with this group that was essentially doing something similar to like commercial staffing. And I had tried that angle briefly and quickly figured out that that was not the route for me. So I knew that prior to that, I was doing staffing on the government side of things, but I didn't really know how to connect the dots. So I started searching YouTube and really couldn't find anyone that would give me like legitimate, transparent information that could get me, started on my journey. Well, I came across this Facebook group, and inside of this Facebook group, there were other individuals that had their own staffing companies. And there was one particular person that had said that they were doing staffing in government contracting. So I reached out to this individual, and they kind of put me on the path of getting started in SAM.gov. But that was all they could really, that was the furthest that they could take me, basically. So once I got that information, I started doing some research on YouTube, ran through a lot of people that were like clickbaiting me and really not giving me enough information for me to kind of be in go mode. And then I stumbled upon one particular channel, and that I reached out to the owner of the channel, and she reached back out to me, and she became my mentor. And that is who helped me to actually get started and actually accelerating me into the government contracting world. So I got started in government contracting. By the time I met my mentor, my now mentor, I had already gotten set up in SAM.gov and gotten my certifications because of the information that she gave to me. So once she and I connected, she was just bridging the gap for me between learning how to search in SAM.gov for solicitations and then actually bidding. So she got me started, and we started bidding on contracts, and we were going in the route of temporary personnel staffing support. Like I said, is basically staffing services. And we had only put in like 3 proposals, excuse me. And out of the 3, we won 2 out of the 3 in the first 60 days of bidding. The first one we didn't win because we had actually overpriced ourselves, and we actually was able to get that information and that feedback from the contracting officer through a process called debriefing. And getting that feedback really helped us to kind of readjust our pricing and then go back in stronger. And that's what aided us in being able to when both of the second and third contract back to back. Both of those contracts in the first 60 days were equivalent to $2.3 million, and they had varied project timelines. So one of them was for like a 6-month contract, very, very short. And then the other one was a 5-year contract. And we began to, after we were awarded, we went through this process where we were just kind of getting all of our people onboarded and getting them set up to start the work. We did, during this time, like we did go through this process where the government decided to utilize what is called a termination for convenience on one of our contracts. And at the time, we were not aware of, what that was, period. So it was a huge learning curve for us. But I do feel like it matured us as a business, and it really helped us to kind of see how to navigate through business through different lenses. So I think you guys remember in part 1, I mentioned about a termination for convenience, and it's basically a clause inside of the FAR that allows the government to be able to back out of a contract as long as it's advantageous to the government and they're not held to this contract, but it allows us to be able to recoup any cost. So I know that it may sound a little horrible, oh my God, there's a termination for convenience, that's got to be horrible. I mean, not really, guys, because you're still able to recoup any costs that are allowable underneath that termination, provided that you know what you're doing. In our case, at the time, we did not know what we were doing. And typically, when the government does these types of termination for conveniences, they're typically handling these sorts of things like their attorney with the business's attorney. Well, in our case, we're small business, so we don't have an attorney that we can actually sit on a retainer, while we figure out, what we're deciding to do. So in our case, we did take the route of going through attorneys, but it became very, very expensive. I mean, retainers of $25,000 such, and we just couldn't afford that, and nor were we interested in even providing or putting a deposit down for $25,000. So we decided to learn it ourselves, and it took a lot of time and energy, but we were able to not only represent ourselves well, but we have knowledge now so that if we were to even be faced with this again in any of our contracts, we know what to do. So I say all that to say that experience, I wouldn't take it back from anybody. I wouldn't take it back because it's bound to happen. As long as you're in government contracting and you have a desire to do business with the government, it will eventually happen in one of your contracts. And the important thing is to not have fear, but to make sure that you have an understanding of what is happening and knowing how to navigate through that process so that you can make sure that you're representing your company well and you're being properly compensated. And ultimately it's a fair deal, because that's really the purpose behind that termination for convenience. So anyways, after that, we still continued on to obviously continue to bid, and we've been awarded more contracts since then. But honestly, my experience as a government contracting has honestly been rewarding. We have had some challenges dealing with a few of our contracts, but I feel like I said before that it has really matured us in ways that I feel like we can actually operate on a level of a large corporation because of the exposure and the learning curve that we were exposed to in such a short period of time. So I hope that this is kind of like a short overview of my experience. I really hope that this was able to kind of give you some insight on government contracting and really realizing that there are many benefits to being a government contractor. Like, you can literally build stability and revenue and credibility for your company by working with the government. The government is a loyal client to have. irregardless of any of the nuances that may come. You can have that you can have that in the private sector as well. But, the most important thing is making sure that you are staying ahead of the game by being proactive in your research and understanding like what you can and cannot do and what the government can and cannot do. And that would just really just help you as you continue to bid on more contracts. At this point, most of you have already completed your registration in SAM and you're ready to get started in government contracting. And I believe that you guys should go ahead and take the leap of faith and just start bidding and realize that your proposals are a learning curve as well. You may make mistakes on the first one. We overbidded ourselves. I mean, by at least $50,000. But having that, putting in the proposal and then getting feedback helps you to know how to fine tune, where you need to make changes or where you need to add to. And that concludes part 2 of our series on government contracts for beginners. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on part 3, which will be released very soon. If you have any further questions or need any clarification on anything that I said, feel free to reach out to me at the sbdoula@gmail.com. I'm always here to help you guys. Also, as I mentioned before, those of you that are ready to start bidding, but you need a little help, I do have a group coaching program designed specifically for you guys. So if you want to be added to the list, email me over to sbdoula@gmail.com. Thanks again, guys, so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.